All right, let's talk about one of the biggest names in tech, Amazon Web Services, AWS. We're going to open up the toolbox and build a really clear mental map of its most essential services. Why? So you can finally get what's really powering the modern internet. Let's dive in. So first, let's start with a really basic question. Just think about the huge apps you use every single day. Netflix, Airbnb, you name it. How on earth do they operate on a global scale, serving millions of people at the exact same time without building their own massive, expensive data centers all over the world? I mean, it sounds kind of impossible, right? Well, that's where the magic of cloud computing comes in. And AWS has been the pioneer in this space since way back in 2006. They provide all the building blocks, the servers, the storage, the databases, all on demand. So you should think of AWS less as a single product and more like a giant builder's toolbox. And today, we're going to unpack the most important tools you'll find inside. Look, any project, whether you're building a house or a piece of software, it always starts with the absolute basics. You need a place to do the work and a place to put your materials. Well, in the cloud, that translates to a place to run your code and a place to store all your files. These are the absolute hammer and nails of AWS. First up, we've got Amazon EC2. Just think of this as the compute. It's the engine, the brains of your whole operation where your code actually does its thing. EC2 gives you a virtual server right there in the cloud. And the keyword here is elastic. It means you can dial your computing power up or down instantly, so you only pay for what you actually use, and you never have to guess about your needs ahead of time. And next, there's Amazon S3. So if EC2 is the brains, S3 is kind of like your universal filing cabinet. It's what's called an object storage service, which is really just a fancy way of saying it can hold pretty much any kind of file you can think of. Images for your website, video backups, huge piles of data, anything. It's built to be incredibly durable and just scale to massive sizes. Now, it's super easy to get these two mixed up, so let's just make it really simple. EC2 is the brain that runs your code. S3 is the filing cabinet that stores your files. They work together all the time, for sure, but they do two totally different jobs. Getting this distinction down is like the first major step to really understanding how AWS works. Okay, so you've got a place to run your code, and you've got a place to store your files. So what's next? Well, your app needs to manage all its information in a really fast, reliable, and organized way. And this is exactly where databases come into play. Just think about it for a second. Every app you use is all about data. User profiles, product info, game high scores, you name it. All that stuff needs to be stored, organized, and pulled up in an instant. You can't just toss all of that critical information into a simple filing cabinet like S3. You need a specialized system built for the job. And what this shows us is that AWS knows there's no one-size-fits-all database. Instead, they have a specific tool for every kind of data job. If you need a traditional database like you'd find in most companies, you've got RDS. If you need insane speed and performance for a massive app, you use DynamoDB. For analyzing gigantic datasets for business intelligence, there's Redshift. The main thing to remember is this: you always pick the right tool for the task at hand. All right, we've nailed down the foundations: compute, storage, and databases. Now let's get to the really cool stuff. These are the tools that are totally changing how applications are being built, not just today, but for the future. I want you to meet AWS Lambda. This is the heart of what everyone's calling serverless computing. Now, the name's a little misleading because, of course, there are still servers involved, but the whole point is you don't have to think about them. You just upload your little piece of code, and AWS handles absolutely everything else. Your code just runs whenever it's needed. So how does that actually work? It's a pretty simple three-step dance. First, some kind of event happens. Let's say a user uploads a new profile picture to S3. That event then triggers your code to run. Your Lambda function wakes up and does its job. And then AWS just manages all the servers and resources behind the scenes. The result? You only pay for the tiny fraction of a second that your code is actually running. It's ridiculously efficient. And speaking of the cutting edge, you know we have to talk about AI. Amazon's SageMaker is a service that's really designed to make machine learning something that every developer can do, not just the PhD specialists. It basically streamlines that whole complicated process of building, training, and deploying ML models, putting some seriously incredible power right at your fingertips. So, you've built this amazing application. You're using some compute, you've got your databases, maybe you've even sprinkled in some serverless and machine learning. but you're not done yet. How do you actually get it to your users quickly and safely? And how do you connect it to the real physical world? This is where this final set of tools comes in handy. To make your app load instantly for somebody on the other side of the planet, you use CloudFront. To connect actual physical devices, think smart home gadgets or factory sensors, you use IoT Core. And to keep everything locked down, secure and compliant, Security Hub acts like your central security guard. These are really the finishing touches that make an app feel professional and robust. Wow, we have covered a lot of ground here, right? We've gone from the basic hammer and nails all the way to the most advanced power tools in the shed. So let's just zoom out for a second and put everything back in the toolbox so we can see that complete picture. And here it is. This is our completed toolkit. We've got our foundations for compute and storage. We have a whole set of specialized databases for whatever data you throw at them. We have those cutting-edge tools for serverless and machine learning. And then finally, we've got the services to deliver, connect, and protect everything we've built. And there you have it. You've just built a really clear mental map of the core AWS ecosystem. These 11 services are the workhorses behind so many of the apps you use every single day. And understanding how they all fit together, well, that's the key to understanding the modern cloud. So, the only question that's left is probably the most exciting one. Now that you know what's in the toolbox, now that you get the incredible power and flexibility that